Uh,
Oh, okay.
Occasionally, I will hit a button, and all of a sudden, I've got a column over here with my bookmarks. How do I get rid of that?
Um, I can help you with that after the
Oh,
program.
okay. It just makes
But
the screen smaller, but it's okay. Does
man,
this mic
yeah,
sound okay? Okay.
sounds good, man. How
Okay.
you been?
I've been good. I Yeah, this is a rig that I originally used at WMOT, and then Huckabee added to it when we were doing virtual, and then he took his camera back, so I'm just using the iPad camera. Let me see if I can get a little more light on the left side. Yeah, that's a little better. Can't
So
do much, but
you've been going through a lot lately. You lost your house recently and
yes,
everything that's going on. And I seen that you had an awesome benefit concert. Man, that was some of the
it's
best
unreal.
talent right there.
Oh, I couldn't
And
believe it.
it was amazing. So tell us a little bit about where you are now with your house and how things are coming along.
Well, let me tell you about the benefit first. This was really something. When the house burned, one of the first calls I got was from Mike Huckabee, and Mike says, "Well, we're doing a benefit for you." He says, "You really don't have any say so in it. I would like for you to be there if you could, but Larry Black and I are doing a benefit, and that's you can be there or not, but we're doing it." So I have some wonderful Christian friends who have just jumped in and done so much for us. I mean, day after day, something else is happening that I could never repay those people who took part, and the donations from all over the country. I just couldn't believe it. But basically, what happened? We lived in an 1864 house. It was an old house built during the Civil War, and boy, you talk about something that was ready to burn. That wood was well seasoned. And one day, as I had many times, I'd gone out on the patio, grilled some steaks, and I'm always super safe. I turn all the gas off when I get through cooking, and went back in the house, and we ate our steaks. And I came back through, and I heard a popping noise, and looked out, and fire had already started and taken the whole wall there. And fortunately, we and the dog got out. Firemen were called, and they later said that what had happened apparently was was a small leak in the propane hose, and I turned everything off, but the steaks, where the steak, some grease had dripped down into those vapors, and kaboom, and that was it. And it pretty much destroyed everything as far as the house was concerned. I'm amazed at the things I've been able to save as far as documents and some of my pictures through the years. And uh, 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 let me give anybody advice out there. If you own a house, go through it, make pictures of everything, because when that fire happens, your brain is just scrambled, and you've got to have all that stuff for insurance. And you need pictures, you need approximate values, and any pictures, videos you've got, digitize them, put them in the cloud. They're there forever then. But it's been a rough time. I won't lie to you. It's been rough.
Well, I feel your pain. Back about 3 or 4 years ago on Valentine's Day, my parents had just paid their house off completely, and
Oh,
the day of the house burned down. The day they paid it off,
oh
it
no.
burned down. So
What
um,
caused their fire? Do you know?
we really don't know, but I was there, and we had just put a gas tank into the utility room, and it really didn't have anything in it.
Oh my.
And I'm sorry about that, but it really didn't have anything in it. Next thing we know, we heard this clicking noise, and our refrigerator in the utility room hadn't been working the last few days, so it had begun to leak. And we told my dad, "You really need to go check that thing." He said, "No, it's all right." Next day, it had done caught a trash bag on fire, and we ran out to see what was going on. And by the time we got in our backyard, it had already spread halfway
Wow.
through the house.
Oh, it's
So,
amazing how quickly they do spread. You think you may have a little time, but you really don't. You need to get out. That's the
and my
best thing.
brother, my brother at the time was probably 3 or 4 months old. He my 11-year-old brother ran in with my 3-month-old brother in his arms just to get the dog's ashes that we had cremated
Yeah.
and a family picture.
Oh, wow. Well, I tell you, it's amazing how quickly they can go down. And we're so fortunate we all got out, and that's the main thing is getting out. Saving your own life.
You know, one thing you and your wife has faced a lot over the years, and if there was anybody that I would say would be of incredible faith, it would be you and your wife, because
Oh,
not only have you lost your house, but a few years ago you lost your son.
yes, I
How
did.
how do you hold on to your faith during times like this?
You know, my faith was, and I know people do, and there's a tendency to do that, but it never occurred to me to lose faith. I think God is looking out for us the whole time. Things happen. Uh, and I remember the pastor who knew Mark well, who preached Mark's funeral, my son, and he said, folks, this wasn't God's will. It's not God's will. Things happen. It was a rainy night. It was storming. The flood water was over the road, and he ran into it. It was dark, and it just happened. This fire, it just happened. Things happen in our lives, and so questioning my faith was never a thing. And I'm surrounded by some great Christian people, a great Christian counselor, and those kind of things help. No doubt about it.
So let's talk about the fun stuff. I was doing some research on you last night, and I've seen that you were on the Ralph Emery show. Tell us a
I
little
was.
bit about what that experience was like.
Well, I had come to WSM in 1974 as an announcer on the FM station. Back then, it's a country music station now, but back then it was beautiful music. We played 101 strings and Perry Como and all that stuff. And I heard that the morning weather guy was going to the 6 o'clock news, and I thought, why not? I'll try out. So a good friend of mine, Gary Beatty, who had done weather in Huntsville, kind of gave me a quick lesson for my audition, and I did the audition. And I thought, well, we'll see. There were some really experienced guys that I was against, but lo and behold, the program director called me and he said, Keith, I think you can handle this. So I started doing the weather. I mean, he said, can you start next Tuesday? This was on, I think, middle of the week before. Can you start next Tuesday? And I said, well, sure. And I read every book I could on weather. I called the Weather Bureau, and they gave me a quick lesson on what weather was like in Middle Tennessee. And lo and behold, I did it. And I did it for 15 years. And calling weather in Middle Tennessee is not an exact science. I'll just tell you that. It can be raining south of Nashville, snowing north of Nashville, raining south of Nashville, and nothing in between. Yeah, it's crazy. But we did that for 15 years, an early morning show, and it was number one, uh, Ralph Emery was just one of the greatest folks I ever worked for, and it was an introduction to Nashville and to all the people who played that show, and got an opportunity to meet some of the real legends, and that was pre-announcing on the Opry. So by the time I got to the Opry, I was ready. I knew a lot of folks, and I can never repay Ralph Emery for all he did for me.
So through the time of you being on the Ralph Emery show, then to the Opry, was there an artist that you really met that you couldn't believe that you had actually got to shake hands with?
Oh, there were many. My hero, since I was a little boy, was Ernest Tubb, and I got to work the Midnight Jamboree and got to know Ernest Tubb, and there was absolutely no disappointment there. He was everything I thought he would be and more. Roy Acuff's the same way. Bill Monroe. I mean, these folks. I thank the good Lord every day that I came to Nashville when I did, because I got to be around those folks, and they're all gone now. But I got to work with them and got to know them, and I just wouldn't take anything for that experience. Uh, Buck Owens was another real good friend. Uh, I was around Merle Haggard some. I can't really call him a friend, but we did some interviews together and that sort of thing. But so many of those real legends. George Hamilton IV was one of my all-time heroes, and he and I got to be really close friends. And boy, what a gentleman there. Uh, he and Sonny James. Oh, loved Sonny and his wife Doris. They they were great friends throughout the years. And it's not because they're legends; it's because they were great people who just happened to be legends.
And you still get to see legends perform every week on Larry's Country Diner. Share with us a little bit about what that experience is all
Boy, I
about.
sure do. I had left the Opry, and uh, it wasn't too long after that. Larry Black, who I'd worked with at WSM, called me and said, "Keith, I'm going to do a new show, and it's going to be on RFD, and we want you to be the announcer and my sidekick. Probably won't last a year, but we'll give it a try." Well, it sounded like fun to me, and so we did, and we're entering in our 12th season right now. Just got back from a week in Branson. We do live shows, do cruises, and so it worked out beautifully. And yeah, I got to see some of my favorite folks through that and work with them again. So that was been a lot of fun and been quite a ride.
So, what about a funny memory for us that you have at Larry's Country Diner?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Uh, uh, Larry's Country Diner is totally unscripted. We just get in there and have a good time. The slogan, which Larry's wife Lou Ann came up with: "The cameras are always rolling, and we don't care." So I would say some of my favorite moments are just hanging out and kidding around with Larry and getting to uh, be around a lot of the country music people and pull jokes. We pull practical jokes on each other. We go on cruises, and oh, that's that's really something. And like I say, we do shows in Branson every year. That's just a lot of fun. One of the things that we did, we were in Branson one time, and Tony Orlando showed up. I'd never met Tony Orlando, but Tyler Yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, and Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers. He's out in Las Vegas now, but we still keep up with each other. There's just so many moments. The thing about Larry's Country Diner, there is, a lot of shows have their what they call their blooper reel, where you see these moments that happen that weren't supposed to happen, and they put them all together in a collection and then show their bloopers. Our bloopers are live and unedited. You mess up, you just mess up, and we'll recover somehow. But it's a lot of fun.
Wow. I mean, you've had some of the greatest country acts right there at Larry's Country Diner.
You
I
bet.
mean, some amazing. I love going back on, I believe it's Country Road TV and
Oh yeah.
watching some of the clips from Larry's Country Diner. I sit there and watch the different clips, and I'm like, man, to be a fly on the wall when that was
Yeah,
happening.
exactly. And the Country Family Reunion show, which they're no longer doing, but I got to be in on some of those, and those were a collection of the most legendary people in country music. And I tell Larry, I don't think he quite grasped what he did with those shows because he has preserved stories from those people, from the people who were there who are no longer with us, and we've got them telling those stories in their own words as an eyewitness. And those kind of things are priceless. And the longer they're gone, I was fortunate. I got to hang around backstage and hear those folks tell a lot of those stories, but I couldn't write them down and write them exactly like they told them. Well, Larry has recorded them telling them, and oh gosh, it's so much fun. I think about Jimmy Dean, talking about you know Big Bad John and how it came about, and all that sort of thing. Roy Clark, and just so many people have these inside stories that the public would never have heard had it not been for Country Family Reunion. And we do the same thing on the diner.
And even then, I was watching a clip the other day. B.J. Thomas, who we would have never thought we would have lost
Yeah,
this last year.
yeah.
Y'all had several clips of him too. And so, share with us your favorite memory about B.J. Thomas.
Well, I remember a Country Family Reunion we did, and he and I were sitting together, and there was a lot of conversation that wasn't on the air. You know, we talked about his early days, and uh, BJ was just a one of a kind person. I met him early in his career. He was doing a concert in Cookeville, Tennessee, at Tennessee Tech, and I got to go backstage and interview him. And he was so kind to me. But that was during the period of time where he was kind of out there. And thank goodness he got turned around and just became a tremendous. He was already a tremendous person, but when he got rid of all the bad rock and roll influences, he was even better. I never will forget. We were walking down the hall talking at the Opry House one time, and he had his young daughters with him, and he introduced me to him, and he told them, he said, "I want you to meet this gentleman." Said he's been on the radio a long time, and he sure helped your dad with his career. He was instrumental. He played my records and he interviewed me. Now, I had very little to do with B.J. Thomas's career, but I thought that was kind of him to tell his daughters that.
So, how did you end up landing the job at Huckabee? Let's talk a little bit about Huckabee.
Well, it was very similar to Larry's Country Diner. Mike and I had known each other for a while. My wife and I did a short-lived cooking show, and the producer was friends with Mike Huckabee. He was from Arkansas, and so Mike came to be on the show. And Mike is an old radio guy. He started when he was a teenager in Hope, Arkansas, on the radio, like I did. And it was so funny because we were just instantly friends. We were brothers from different mothers, kind of thing. He was in Arkansas. I was in Tennessee. We were both teenagers. We both had a dream of being on the radio. And I started when I was 16. He started when he was 14. So we knew all the same people just by different names. And it was just instant friendship. Well, flash forward, the cooking show ended. One day I get a call from Mike Huckabee, and we'd kept in touch with each other through that time. And he said, "Keith, I'm doing a new show. It's kind of like the show I did on Fox, only this will be on Trinity Broadcasting." And he said, "I want you to be my announcer." And I never asked, "How much does it pay? When does it tape?" I didn't care. I said, "Sure, let's do it." And he said, it was kind of like Larry. It might last a season. Well, we're entering our 5th season now. So we did something right. And here again, so many people have come through the Huckabee show that I've gotten to meet. Recently, we had Mark Farnan from Grand Funk Railroad. Now, I know I'm kind of associated with country music, but I loved Grand Funk Railroad. Played them on the radio when I was a young disc jockey in Cookeville, and it was just a thrill to get to meet him. Peter Noon from Hermit's Hermits. Of course, we've had some country artists on too, but it's just we had Meatloaf on the other night. I couldn't believe when they booked Meatloaf. How does that fit into Huckabee? But it did, and he was a very nice guy, and got to spend some time with him. And he and Mike and I had a wonderful conversation backstage about the old days of rock and roll, and come to find out, Meatloaf is a big country music fan. He wanted to know about the folks I knew, and I wanted to know about the folks he knew. So it's worked out great, and we continue to do things, and Mike has just turned into a wonderful friend. We were talking about when my son passed away. Just for example, he called me, and as soon as he heard, and he said, and we had taped on Tuesday, and then Mark was killed on Tuesday night. We had taped early because he had a whole weekend of engagements he had to go to. And he called me and he said, "I've canceled everything. I'll be there Saturday and Sunday for the visitation and funeral." And he and Janet showed up, and they stayed with us. And then Thanksgiving was right after that. And he called me. At that time, he owned a home on Santa Rosa Beach in Florida. He said, Keith, I'm taking the family to Disney World, and the house is yours. No, it's not an acceptable answer. We want you down here. You need to get your toes in the sand. So we went down and spent a week at his house. So we had it all to ourselves. The only person we saw was his housekeeper, who came by to see what kind of groceries we needed and what we like to eat. But that's the kind of fellow that Mike Huckabee is. He's there, and he's for you, and he'll stand by you.
So, what about your favorite musical guest on Huckabee so far?
Wow. It's a real close tie between the Beach Boys and Mark Farnan, I'd have to say. Oh, I like Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis Jr. They were good from the Fifth Dimension. And Dionne Warwick. I had always wanted to meet Dionne Warwick. And lo and behold, there she was. She and her son books her. And we just had a wonderful conversation. But I'd played Dionne Warwick records since the beginning of my career. And what amazes me is these people come to Nashville, Hendersonville's where we take the show, just outside of Nashville, and most of them are totally fascinated and big fans of country music. So they're aware of me as an Opry announcer, and blows my mind. Someone says, "Hey, let's get a picture of me and Keith." What do you want a picture of me for? Because I want a picture of you. But it's a gosh, I've been so blessed,
Well, man, what's coming up for Larry's Country Diner or Huckabee that you can share?
Well, as I say, we just finished a week in Branson. We've already booked another week in Branson next October. We've got a cruise coming up in February, and we're taping shows. See, the difference between Huckabee and the diner is we do all the diners like in a couple of days. We it's a weekly series, so we only do 26 shows, and then they repeat one, so that fills out the whole year. Huckabee is 52 weeks a year, so we do that every week. Larry's, we tape them, in usually a couple of days. We'll do 4 shows a day, and we'll have it all wrapped up. But we're going to be taping, I think, January, February, and March. So I don't know who's going to be on the show yet, but we'll see as time goes by.
Well, Keith, it's always an honor to have you on the show, man. I consider you a great friend, and I just appreciate what you do. You're a blessing to me, my friend.
Well, same here. I follow you quite closely on Facebook, and it's a tough business now, and I would hate to be on the starting end of it instead of where I am. And I admire you for getting out there and taking advantage of things like the internet and the technology that's available now that I never heard of when we did some virtual shows during the height of the pandemic on Huckabee and Larry's Country Diner too. And if you had told me, like today, that I would be sitting in my living room doing a nationwide TV show on a laptop, well, what's that? I don't even know what a laptop is. It's amazing, and you take full advantage of that, and that's what it takes nowadays.
Well, I appreciate you so much, my friend. Thank you for coming on with us, and you're welcome back anytime.
Well, I appreciate that. One other thing, when I started doing the weather, speaking of technology, it reminded me of it. When I started doing the weather, you actually took a grease pencil and drew the map. You had a map up there, and you drew the cold fronts and the warm fronts and all this stuff and the highs and the lows. And of course, eventually that was all done on a computer. But now that I feel like I'm really an old timer when I think about those boards I used to draw every morning on the Ralph Emery show. And you had to know your geography too.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, my friend. You have a blessed rest of your day, and I look forward to chatting with you soon.
You too, Andrew. Come see us. You need to come to a taping sometime of Huckabee or
I sure.
either one.
I sure do. I'll get up there as soon as I can. Thank you, buddy.
Okay. All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.